First Timer by Elliott Smith. A couple things to keep in mind is that for this tutorial specifically, I'm going to teach it while tuned in F. So what that means is that my guitar is tuned standard, and then I just put a capo on the first fret. If your guitar is tuned a whole step down, then just put the capo on the third fret, and you should be fine. So if you haven't already, get your capos ready. So yeah, and don't worry if you don't have a capo. You can always just buy one online for pretty cheap, so it's not that big of a deal. So yeah. Personally, I don't think that the being tuned in F sounds necessarily correct to the recording, because if you try to play it like side by side with the recording, it sounds a little bit too high. I think E flat sounds a little bit better, but when I tried to figure out the chords to E flat, I had some trouble figuring out certain chords, and it didn't flow too well. So I figured being tuned in F works fine enough. So yeah. One benefit to being tuned in F is that it is easier to play the solo. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And speaking of solos, I actually figured out how to play the solo for the song for the first time. So if you're interested, check out my part 2, and I'll tell you. Hopefully I'll be able to teach you how to play the solo. So yeah. As you saw in my little intro video, this part 1 of the tutorial is going to cover the chorus, verse, and then the end of the song. And as you saw, it's mainly just chords, so nothing too difficult, nothing finger picky or anything like that. That's all in part 2 with the solo. So it's pretty straightforward, and yeah. So anyways, now that that's over with, we can finally start with the tutorial, so yeah. Alright, so first, how you want to start off the verse is you want to play a G major chord. Just a standard G major chord, and pretty much what he repeats throughout the whole song is he plucks the root of the chord a couple times and then strums the rest of the chord. So yeah, if you don't know what the root is the lowest note of the chord. So in this case, for the G major chord, it will be the 3rd fret of the low E string. And strum the rest of the chord. And remember, everything that I talk about is relative to the capo, so keep that in mind when I'm talking about frets and stuff. So yeah. So first chord, G major, then A minor, then you want to transition into an E minor chord, and pretty much what that transition is after the A minor, you want to put your, I put my pinky on the 3rd fret of the low E string, and then jump right into the E minor chord. After the E minor, it's the C major chord. And then after the C major chord, it'll be G major again. After the G major, it's a C with an added G. If you don't know what that means, is essentially it's just a C major chord with an added G in the root. So my ring finger would be on the 3rd fret of the G string, of the low E string, and my pinky will be on the 3rd fret of the A string. Everything else is exactly like a C major chord. So a C with the added G. After that chord, then it's kind of this weird chord that I kind of played around with, and I think it sounds right. But essentially, I don't know the name of it, so yeah. Essentially, it's 2nd fret of the low E string, open A, open D, 2nd fret of the G, open B, and 3rd fret of the high E string. So once again, that's 2 0 0 2 0 3. So after the weird chord, then it jumps right back into the G major chord. So after the final G major chord of the verse, you can kind of hear like this kind of move, and pretty much what that is or what I think it is I move my fingers down exactly one string. I don't move it any other frets. It's just that G major chord. I move my index and my middle finger down one string, and then just jump. So I move it down, strum once, and then quickly move it back to the G major chord. And if you're curious, this is technically a C9 chord. Kinda. So yeah. So that's pretty much the end of the verse. That's he repeats it twice, and then he plays into the chorus. So the chorus would be D major, A minor. minor. Then he transitions into an F major bar. So in that transition after the A minor chord is I just pluck the open low E string and then make that F major bar chord. So after the F major bar, E minor chord, then D major. After D major, it's this part is the "Come on back to me" part. So A minor, then G major, after the G major, this part's the "My Bride Tomorrow." So this will be A minor, then B major bar. And if you don't know how to do this, this is essentially just a bar, and then C major. This is this is totally up to personal preference, but if you don't want to make that C major chord like this, you can just move your fingers up one fret to make the a C major bar chord. But I like to do it the open C major way, just because if I do the bar way, it kind of sounds too high pitch and sounds kind of weird. But that's just me. So C major. Alright, so that's pretty much the end of the chorus. After the chorus, it's the solo, and the background to the solo is the verse, pretty much. So if you don't want to bother learning how to play the solo itself, you can just play the verse again, and you should be fine. So yeah, near the very end of the song, at the last verse, things kind of change a little bit. So the part when he goes, "Seen you by yourself," he says that twice. So at that part, it's right when he says "Seen you by yourself," that's G major, and then C with added G, then that weird chord again, then G, then that move. So after you do that move and then you go back to the G, play the G a couple times, and then you want to transition into an E minor chord. So that transition pretty much is I'm already plucking the root of the G chord, so after I pluck it a couple of times, then I slide my fingers over to the second fret of the low E string, and then E minor, jump right into the E minor, then repeat that again, the "Seen you by yourself," repeat that again essentially. So after you do transition into the E minor, then you play a G again. And then he kind of takes a point from the solo where he goes, and that's just essentially part of the solo. So what that is I'm using my ring finger and putting it on the second fret of the G string, and then I slide it over to the fourth fret of the G string. So. And then I use my index finger to put it on the second fret of the G string. Then I reach over with either my ring finger or my pinky and put it on the fifth fret of the D string. So from the fifth fret, I slide it over to the second fret of the D string. Then once I hit the second fret of the D string, I kind of let go. So, kind of like that. Then kind of like haphazardly try and make a C with added G chord. Kind of like half-ass strum it a little bit just to make a noise. And then after that, then I put my finger on the third fret of the high E string. Everything is open, and then I kind of like sloppily try and put my index finger on the second fret of the G string, just so I can pluck the G string. After that, you can just kind of lightly strum it just to make some noise, and then after that chord, then just let go and pluck the open G again. After you pluck the open G, then start strumming the G chord again. So let me repeat that one more time. So yeah, that's pretty much the verse, chorus, and then the end of the song. So pretty straightforward as long as you know your chords. It will take some time maybe trying to work with the transitioning and stuff, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Shouldn't have too hard of a time with it. This song took me a little bit of time to figure out because the link that I used to kind of reference the song had incorrect chords, or at least I thought it was incorrect because it didn't really match the bass notes that he was playing in the song. So I had to figure out the chords on my own, more or less. So other than that, hopefully you shouldn't have too big of problems learning the song, and hopefully stay tuned for my part 2 so I can teach you the solo, because it's pretty cool. Anyways, yeah, stay tuned and watch my part 2.